Hello, everyone. That was a very good clap. Thank you, Mafalda.
You're most welcome.
Hello, we are here on talking into this Zoom called Spirits of the South. No, Spirits of the Southern Europe, right? Not just Southern Europe. My name is Satu Lindgren, and it's always so weird to say my name because I have no idea how to really pronounce it. Because I've heard so many people pronouncing it in so many different ways. So I'm like, I this is kind of my name.
You have to find a name like Dane, like Dr. Danger. Something like that, maybe.
Like an alter ego, my superhero name. Something that would be easy to pronounce in all of the countries.
Exactly.
So we have Portuguese translation. So if you want to listen to Portuguese translation, there is a link in the chat box here. And we don't have any other languages. That's so weird. We're only doing English and Portuguese. And we have like almost no people from the Southern Europe. Where are you guys? Are you asleep? What's happening?
I don't know. It's like 7 p.m. It's a nice time for people to come. But I'm interested, so.
So we have issues here. You have a Spanish passport, Elena? Good. Elena is representing Spain because she has a Spanish passport. Good. So, okay. So I think most of you who are here now, you already know Access and you know what is the clearing statement. But just for those of you, if you might be listening to this later on, I will be using the Access Consciousness clearing statement. I will not explain it here. If you want to learn more what it is, you can go to theclearingstatement.com and find the explanation there. But the cool thing about clearing statement is that you don't need to understand it at all. You could just use it. You could just be like, yep, I'll let go of my limitations. I don't need to know how this works. But if your mind wants to have the explanation, then you can go to that website and check it out there. And I think it's also translated into Portuguese, so, and other languages too. So just talk in Finnish, which is my language, but yeah, anyways. Somebody lives in Portugal. Sonia, that's cool, awesome. I'm very curious about those countries now. And talk to entities. That's what I also wanted to say. A couple more words about what talk to entities is. So that's part of Access Consciousness. And it's kind of its own thing, but it's kind of part of it. It uses the tools from Access Consciousness. And it was created by someone named Shannon O'Hara. And Shannon is Gary Douglas's stepchild. So Gary Douglas is the founder of Access. And Talk to the Entities started because Shannon was seeing entities. She was hearing entities, but she didn't really have any tools how to deal with that. And for the longest time, she was also ignoring that she was seeing and hearing these different beings who don't have bodies. And that made her life quite difficult. So then she started talking with Gary, and eventually all of this led into the creation of Talk to the Entities and all these different tools for how to deal with entities and with your awareness. And for me, when I took my first Talk to Entities class, it was actually one of the first Access classes that I did. And it was this fast track to consciousness. That's why I really love it, because it was such a like a speed train to what I'm aware of. And also not just what I'm aware of, but also to start trusting what I'm aware of, even if nobody else is aware of it. Because, you have these different things that you're aware of, and then you look outside of you and you ask other people, hey, did you see that thing? And no one saw it. And then you think that you're crazy or you didn't see it, you start doubting yourself. But maybe nobody else saw it, but it might still be there. So all those things and all those awarenesses and everything that you have been aware of and seen in your lifetime that no one else did, and then you started doubting yourself, will you now discern and create all of that? Right or wrong, good and bad, but and start reclaiming what you actually know, even if no one else knows it. Right or wrong, good and bad, but Yeah, and if you have any questions, you can ask at any time. You can also type them in the chat box. I will maybe see them. I will read it every now and then, and my father will read it, right?
Yes, I will read them. I will say to you, there is a question. Not right now.
You were practicing.
Yeah, but I have a question.
Yeah.
Because for me, entities is something that I'm aware, but at the same time, what I get is I'm avoiding it a few times, 1 or twice in my life, not more than that. And yeah, for me, entities is something that is very, how can I say it? It's different. It's like very, different, let's say. And from everything I'm aware of, and it's very light and heavy at the same time. So my question is kind of, do you have any tool or anything that would create more ease?
Stop avoiding it.
What?
Stop avoiding it.
Choice, right? Yes, I get it.
But that's actually a very good point because, and this is something we've been talking quite a lot in Access recently, and I've also looked at this a lot in my life, that there are so many things that we are kind of like, this is a bit weird, I'm not quite sure what to do with this, and then we push it away. And we put it somewhere like a bit further away, or we create this distance with it, or we're just like, I just kind of pretend that it's not there. And that's when it gets really tricky. Because then when it's so far away, you cannot really see it, you cannot properly perceive it, and you have no idea what to do with it. And then you also start doubting yourself because you're like, well, it's quite far away, maybe it's not even there. So all those things that we pushed away and we try to avoid as if that's going to make it easier, can we just turn and create that? Right, everyone, good about putting popcorn and just prison guns. So, Mafalda, what would happen if you didn't avoid your awareness?
Maybe I would take my ass to a talk to the entities class. Just that. And that's interesting because that was one of the first class I said I want to go and have that class. But after 2 years and something of class with Shannon, because and this was after foundation. When we go to foundation, we have for me a little bit of awareness around entities. And the first foundation I had was everybody was like, entities, girls, like very thing. And everybody was like very excited, let's say. And for me it was like, okay. And said, okay, let's pick yourself and go to a talk to the entities class. And then I just chose to have a 3-day body class with Shannon and said, yes, I'm going to do that class. She was telling me, please go and do a talk to the entities class because of a question I asked her. And I was like, yes. And then 2 years later, I'm here.
So you're not avoiding it at all?
No.
But how much is that also because you were told that you should do it? And you're like, nah, I will not do it.
I don't have that.
You don't have that at all. Yeah, so all those things that we've been told that we should do or that we shouldn't do, and now we have no choice but to resist that, can we just turn and create that?
Yes, please.
Right around good about it's very funny because then we pretend that we have a choice because we are now resisting something that somebody said to us, or we're going like, I'm not going to do that because you told me to do that. But then we are taking the choice away from ourselves.
Yeah, and that's one of the things with choice, and I get it. It's with everything, and I don't want to take a lot of this out of the point we are talking here about entities of the. But on the same, but okay, let's do it. But let's not do it. It's that thing of people telling you you have to do that, or you have to be aware of that, or you have to whatever, and go into the place I do whatever I want. Fuck you. You know?
Yeah, but it's like, I'll do whatever I want, which is against you.
Exactly. And that's the thing, because it's never you go into your awareness, it's always going into everything but what you said.
Yeah. So everywhere where we do that and we pretend that we are choosing for ourselves, when in fact we're just choosing against someone else, can we just renegade that?
Yes.
Right, wrong, good and bad, but I'm back on. I should suppose and beyond. So what if instead you start asking, okay, if I choose this, what will it create? What future will it create? If I choose this, what will my life be like in 5 years? If I choose to be aware of entities or be aware of what I'm aware of, what will that create?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that happens with entities too, because yeah, we receive downloads from entities or information from entities. Let's go for this. And I quite received a few of them, let's say, because at the beginning was like, why am I thinking of this? Like, I never had this thought in my mind. What the fuck is doing this on my, okay? And yeah, that's one of the things that for me is the hardest, is having that download, that information going, it's not mine. And at the same time, why am I thinking this?
This is a very good point. This is kind of like a very, very long conversation. It's also a very interesting conversation because we have this, or if we look at like what's actually the definition of an entity, it's an energy that's defined in some way. You can have a body or not have a body, but it's a defined energy. So for example, I was talking about my name at the beginning of this. That's like, is that how I define myself? I'm a certain name. Or then you can take a superhero name like we talked about, and then you define yourself based on that name. And the definition that we have of who we are is what stops us from receiving. And this is not like a very beginning conversation. So it's very interesting that we're going here now, but I'm like, that's an interesting topic. Let's go there. So how many definitions of you do you have that stops you from receiving everything that is going to be discerned and credit on? Right or wrong, good and bad, but I'm fuck all nations, basically. And then you could have a definition that I'm not aware of entities, that's who I am, and then you will not receive from entities because that's not who you are. You're not a person who receives from entities, or whatever it is. So do you have any more to say to that? You look kind of like...
I'm just laughing because I was in a call like 15 minutes ago, and the last part we talked about was how much I was avoiding receiving.
Oops. It's almost as if I'm aware of what you know.
Exactly. You have no awareness at all.
Yeah, no, not at all. Yeah. But it is those definitions that we have. So all the definitions of you that you're using to refuse to receiving, you could be choosing. Can we destroy and create that? Better on good and bad, but on buckle and anxious boys and beyonds. And if we look at like the topic of entities, that's kind of a thing that most people don't want to be defined as crazy or as somebody who talks with, invisible beings. And that's like, there are all these definitions that if you do perceive entities, or if you tell other people that you're aware of other beings who don't have bodies, then you would be defined as something. So everything that is, can we discern and grade that? Right or wrong, good or bad, but I'm on anxious, boys and bins. You can always be aware of entities and not tell anyone if you're afraid of the definitions that people will put on you.
Yeah, and for me, one of the other things more than because that thing of, you see something you are not supposed to see in this reality, you are not supposed to see this. But for me, it was more because I was never very communicative, let's say. I was not ever talking about it. But for me, having the awareness more, it was easier for me to talk about, for example, this has an issue. I'm aware that this has an issue, and I know what it is, you know, more than, okay, I have a ghost by my side. Can you talk to him? And somebody say, what? No, I don't have that, because although I could see it now, I cannot, I can no longer see it. But with things, for me, it's easy. Stuff, it's easier to get that information out there, and people saying, how do you know it? You know, and that's not it.
What is that weird sound? Somebody has a weird sound. Maybe you. Maybe it's the entities. They're trying to say something. But where is that sound coming from? It's very weird.
Carla?
I am having a very bad time hearing.
Hearing who? Me?
You and Mafalda, there's something going on.
Let me see. I muted somebody. Did that help?
Yes.
I think. Yes. Thank you. Your question, Mafalda, I could not hear it.
Okay. So I was saying that for me it was easier to have like awareness of objects, or what is going on with them, why they are not working, or whatever that is, or even, for example, if someone is chatting me about something, you know, I know when I have to go to my phone and check that, or to my computer and check that. I know. I just know, freaking know. And for me, that was a part that was like, how do you know it? You are always present when people talk to you, more than having a ghost on my side, let's say, you know. But so what is that? It's kind.
Yeah. So how much do we? Because the first form of everything is the energy. The energy is the thing that starts to create things. The energy is underneath the creation of your phone, of your table, of your body, everything. It comes first as energy, and then it starts to have a physical form. But then we pretend that we're not aware of that energy, that we're only aware of something when it actually has a very, very physical and solid form. And then that's kind of like, that's the first moment when we're willing to see something. But that's when the creation has been already going on for a long, long time in the energetic form. And then if we only allow ourselves to have the awareness of when something is really solid, then it's really tricky to start changing anything. So everywhere where we have subjected ourselves to this reality so that we would never be aware of the energies that are the ones that create stuff, can we just try and grid that? Right or wrong, did that explain it any? Like, did that help?
My brain is like, what did she said? Like, what?
Good. It's only 20 minutes.
Exactly. My brain is, what is she talking about? It's like Chinese, for example.
Yeah. All right.
But the energy matches what I asked. So.
Yeah. So, but it is quite about like, I mean, I said it in like a one sentence or so, but it is like all of these things that we've been talking so far, they actually could be pretty big, longer conversations. And I'm just trying not giving you these little tiny bits and pieces, and then you can listen to this like 25 times and it will make sense. You're welcome.
Or they can come to your class in Lisbon.
You can come to class. Yeah, I can
just shamelessly promoting it.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah, so then I can just say it there myself 25 times instead of you having to re-listen to it 25 times. Yeah. Yeah, so when we look at all of the like the entities and the topic of this Zoom it's very interesting because everything got really loud here in my apartment right now when I said that. That's hilarious. So yeah, hello everybody. Spirits of the Southern Europe, and the idea was kind of like the nature spirits, and this came from me doing another Zoom with Yvonne, who is also a Talk to Entities facilitator, some time ago about spirits of the North. So we were talking about all those beings who live here in the northern countries, because I'm from Finland and she's from, well, Germany, but lives in Norway. And it was very interesting. That like opened up a very cool space. If you haven't watched that Zoom, I do recommend it. It was really cool. And it's not in Portuguese, but it's in Russian and Estonian in English. And so then spirits of the earth, spirits of the north, spirits of the earth. And I wanted to talk about the spirits that you have in like Portugal and Spain and all of the southern Europe. And it was such a very, very different energy, because the ones that we have here in the north, we all heard that, like the Scandic mythology of the fairies, elves, all of that kind of stuff, they are much more in a way present, and it's harder to ignore them. We still have so many stories of them, and it's almost like if you say that kind of stuff to here to like almost to anyone, they're like, yeah, I kind of know that, and people still acknowledge that these beings in a way exist. But then I was looking at the southern Europe and the entities there, and all the beings of the earth there, and it was this kind of like almost non-existent energy. They were very so it's very, very subtle. So like we were just talking about, that you only can be aware of something when it's very, very kind of already quite solid. So then looking at the entities, especially the entities of the earth in the southern Europe, how it's very, very subtle. So you really have to practice your awareness and practice this thing of being aware of the subtle energies way before they become solid, way before they have a body, because these beings, they don't currently really have bodies. So how much can you practice and allow your awareness to expand and be aware of the most subtle things? And some of us are very, would call yourself maybe very sensitive, and you are more aware of subtle energies, and then some of us are less sensitive in that way. So everywhere where we have defined ourselves as being certain degree sensitive, can we destroy and uncreate that? Right or wrong, good and bad, but ooh, that was quite nice. So everywhere where we have defined ourselves as certain degree sensitive, can we destroy and uncreate that? Right or wrong, good and bad, but how did we even get here? I'm not sure. From the solid kind of thing. I tried to answer your question, and then I tried to bring it to the topic. Does anybody have it?
Yeah, but it's kind of related, because for me, for example, the beings, for example, and it's easier when you go to the nature here to connect, and you don't need a lot of nature to connect. At least I don't need a lot of nature to connect to them, but they are so subtle, and so they are very present, but it's so soft,
It's very different than people, and there's a lot of here in the northern countries, we don't have that many people, and we're more used to this kind of subtle energies. But in your countries, there's a whole lot more people, and you're maybe more entrained to having that energy of people and bodies. So, and then in the other Zoom that we did, we talked about how much when you don't acknowledge something, that's when it kind of stops existing in a sense. It doesn't really, in Peter Pan, and I don't know if any of you have seen it, but there's this the Tinkerbell, the fairy, and then they say something like, whenever a child stops believing in fairies, the fairy dies. So, I mean, the nature spirits, or the spirits of the earth, they don't really necessarily die. They are there, but the energy is very suppressed, and it's hidden, and they cannot do the stuff with the earth that they would naturally do. And that's one of the things that is creating our earth the way that it is currently. So how much can we start acknowledging all those beings of the earth who would like to contribute, and whose job is to contribute and support the earth, that we have driven them away? So can we invite them back now? Start inviting them back, and start inviting them back into our lives, into cities where we live, into our homes, into the areas, into the countries, and into the sea. And you don't have to get a very specific image of, oh, I see this being here. This is like the spirit of the mountain, and now I will invite you. But you can just literally go like, hey, all spirits of the earth, hello everyone. I perceive you. I know that you're here. Please come and play more. And it doesn't have to be anything super, what would you call it? Significant. You don't have to go there and sit and meditate in a cave or whatever. You could just go wherever you are, like, hey, who's here? Is there anybody here who would like to play with the earth? Who would like to contribute to the earth here? Come play. I invite you to play. Because they do in a way honor that these are our cities and we have built these cities and we've kind of pushed them away, so they don't have that permission to really play and create. So it's up to us to give that permission to them. So everything that doesn't allow that, can we just try and create it all? Rather, I'm going to bap and buckle and ensure it's present this. And all the cities and places and spaces that all of you have any kind of connection to that you might not even be cognitively, what is that word? Cognitive? Well, that word, aware of. Can you allow yourself to tap into those places and start inviting the spirits of the earth to start playing there? Right, everyone, good and bad, but I'm back on. I just played in. Cool. Any other questions? It's kind of nice how when you start playing with the entities and you start inviting the spirits of the earth come to play more, it starts creating this more peaceful energy. I don't know what it did to you, but at least for me, it's very more like peaceful and relaxed energy.
Yeah, and it's lighter.
Yeah.
So I have a question. It's not that lighter. I'm overpowered. I'm going for the question. So please, if anyone have a question,
they're just putting it into your head because like, she's good at asking questions. Let's put her to ask all of them.
Okay. So what is, because when you were talking about the spirit, it's not die, but it's very faint or very soft, let's say. And the information that was like, it was kind of a download of information, was about witch hunt.
Mm-hmm.
And how much of it has to do with that, because in Portugal we had a few of it, like back in the
witch hunts.
Exactly, like, and how much of that is related was because you said that in the first information that popped was like witch hunt.
All right, so everything that has been done there. Okay, to hunt the witches, can we do that? Just running for that. And how many of those who were those what we would call witches, they were the ones who were working with the spirits of the earth, and they were those who were inviting them in and asking them to contribute and to play with the fields or be in the forest or wherever. And then they were seen like talking to themselves or wherever, and then they were defined as witches. So everywhere where you have been defined as a witch, if you talk with entities, can we discern and get that? Right or wrong, good and bad, but un poco uninterested, boys and beyonds. That's quite of a very extensive topic also that is more talked about at the two-day talk to entities class, and I would kind of leave it there because it tends to go very interesting past life stuff and all things like that. So instead of doing 24-hour Zoom, maybe we'll leave that to the class.
Just maybe, right?
Or is this gonna be
we have one going on in Portugal, in the beginning of November. So if anyone wants to join,
some
shameless promotion.
Mafalda and Celia and some spirits of the earth. I'm still very curious about the spirits of the Portugal and the seas. The seas, they keep kind of pulling me. And one thing that's very interesting about the spirits who are kind of the spirits of the sea and that live in the sea, they tend to be quite dark and not bad, but they just are more darker. And I don't know how many of you have noticed this thing that you look at the deep sea and it seems kind of dark and you are kind of withdrawn from it. You're I don't want to go there. I know that, for example, my sister, she's freaked out about seas, especially the darker sea, but the deeper seas, she's like, no. It's her worst nightmare. And yeah. So, and I wonder how much that is the thing of those beings who are there in the seas. They are these more darker spirits. And then a lot of people go oh my God, they must be really bad and horrible. But not necessarily. They just, they are darker, but doesn't make them any worse or anything. So how many entities have you, and how many entities, energies, beings, things have you rejected from your life because you looked at it and it looked too dark? Everything that is can be discerned and good at. Yeah. Right and wrong, good and bad, but un poco unnatural, boys and beyonds. And it was very interesting with the other Zoom about the spirits here in the north. And I was Googling them and I was looking a little bit beforehand, and all of those pictures and the mythology about them is very, very dark. And it's made to look kind of super scary because it's just this darker energy. And then everything that has that kind of darker sense, we tend to avoid it and we tend to push it away. And some of the spirits of the earth, they do have that kind of darker sense. If you look at, for example, trolls who live under the mountains, or whatever beings or energies that you are attaching to mountains or underneath the earth, it's darker. If you duck into the earth, it's dark. There isn't really sunlight inside the earth. But does that make the earth bad? No. So everything we have defined as bad, when it's actually just being a bit darker, can we discern and grade that? Right or wrong, good and bad, but un poco unnatural, boys and beyonds.
And it's interesting because if you look into Portugal's history and Spain's too, and a bit of France, when they went overseas to find another countries, they almost all report stories of monsters and beings that were destroying the boats and all of that were really associated with bad weather and all of that. I say, oh, it was only that. Forget about, there is no being there. There is nothing there. Just them. They were tired and were seeing stuff.
Yeah. This is kind of interesting. How much do you allow those beings in the dark seas to awaken? Because again, all those beings who are the spirits of the earth and who are the earth entities or beings, they are what this planet requires. They're part of the, what is that called, ecosystem, whatever that is called, and they support this planet. And then when we don't want them to be present here, we're pushing them away. That's part of what allows this planet to, die. So are we willing to get rid of our fear of the darker energies and allow these beings, or judgments of these beings, and allow these beings to actually, be alive and contribute to the earth and be present here? Or are our points of view more important? This is almost like a strong talk. This is weird.
But it's so interesting because for me, I always, when I was, this is so awesome, because when I was a kid, and I was studying that, it was like, have that sense of some truth attached to it, but at the same time, all the stories of that is not true, that is not real, just they were just tired or whatever, or drunk or whatever,
Yeah.
and always have that feeling like there is something that is real about that.
Yeah, so all those stories that we've been told about the spirits of the earth that have been partially true and partially lies, can we like allow what is true and what is a lie to disentangle? Right or wrong, gonna bad, and poco on boys and beyonds. And that's kind of like, especially if you look at stories that are a little bit like further back in history, and we didn't have words for stuff necessarily, and then we tried to define things with whatever we had available at the moment, and then they become these stories, and then they live on, and then we believe them, and then we're basically fucked. So I think that is kind of just trying to get that right or wrong, because your mind can only define what you already know. So it kind of like, if you see something that you have never seen before, if you see a color that you've never seen before, how do you explain that to others? How do you tell a story of a color that you've never seen before to someone who hasn't seen it? You try to explain it with the words that you have, but you don't have the exact word to match it. So that's kind of what we've done with a lot of the spirits of the earth, that we have seen something that we've never had a word for. And then we try to define it with our mind and with what we have seen so far. And then we get this like half truth, half lie. And then we are like, well, so everything that is, can we destroy and grade all? Right or wrong, good and bad, and poco on issues, boys and beyonds.
I have another, because this conversation is so awesome. My mind is like, yeah, like acknowledged by, because there is a part that is kind of a fantasy of what people create around it to try to explain it. They draw something and you believe it is real and true because, or it's a lie because whatever. But because one of the things that I really like, for example, for me specifically, is like fantasy movies, because they have a sense of a truth with a lie attached too, because they always try to define the beings with a certain shape or certain whatever.
Yeah.
So what part of
they kind of acknowledge what you know, and they kind of bring you closer to the sense of what you had when you were a child. And that's what I really always like about Talk to Entities, because it acknowledges all those things that you've been aware of when you were a kid, and gives you tools to go even further with that and have more with what you were aware of when you were a kid. But now you can actually do something with it and like take it further and create with it. And that's why it's so freaking exciting. Did you have actually a question, or was it just that?
Yeah. It was kind of that, and that acknowledgement that you made now, having the tools to deal with this, because there is so many lies attached to what is true of the energy of something that is different. Because if you go and see a monster movie or whatever, it's a truth that there is those beings that are visible and invisible, and you can perceive them, and but then they fantasize with a shape, which might be true or not, I don't know, but at the same time, that energy of acknowledgement that talks with entities have of, you know, there is something beyond what they've told you until now.
Yeah.
And that's what I wanted to ask, and you said, you know, you were just telling.
I already took it from your head, damn. But also I wonder how many things of all of you have in you that you have tried to define by the words or definitions of this reality, but you don't actually fully exist in this reality, and then you have diminished yourself to be in this reality instead of being everything that you could actually be, even if you cannot define it. So, sorry, Celia. Everything this is can be discerned and good all right or good about for the Pocahontas. I do very long clearings sometimes, and then sometimes I just facilitate with doing weird sounds like eh. I don't know how you translate that. Well, anyways.
A translator always follows the energy and do the same sounds.
I'm gonna listen to it next time. Yeah, so this is also like what Talk to Entities for me has always been a lot about acknowledging those things about me that don't fit into this reality that I've actually always been, but then I cut it off or I try to ignore it because this reality didn't really have words for it. So everywhere where you have tried to define yourself based on this reality, can we destroy and grid that? Right or wrong, good and bad, por un poco on issues, pues bien. We've already been going on for quite a long time. Does anybody have any like other burning questions at this point? No. There is the other Zoom that we did, like the Space of the North. I will watch that. It has very different information than this one. And then we will probably also do a couple more with different areas. And I think we're going to do one with Russia and then Eastern Europe. So this is very exciting. There's more to come on this topic. And then, of course, you can always come to Talk to Entities class. And also, actually, Shannon did a telecall. It's a 3-part telecall that talked about Space of the Earth. That probably also has very different information in this one. So if you're interested, there's a lot of materials. And that's also really cool because they used to not be much about these topics. So now there is something, and we're creating more all the time based on the request of all of us and the demand of all of us to be something different and create something different with this earth and with all the beings, and acknowledging all those beings who are here, not just the physical bodies that we see, but all the energies. So I'd like to do just a very quick thing here at the end. You can, if you want, you can close your eyes. And allow yourself to relax and push down your barriers. Allow your barriers to drop. Just let them drop all the way to the earth. And allow yourself to relax, relax, relax. And just for this short moment, don't continue it after this. Allow yourself to be aware of everything that you can be aware of. All those things that you've been avoiding, all those things that you've been pushing away, all those beings that you haven't been willing to perceive. Allow yourself just a little glimpse of everything that you could be aware of. And relax. And you don't have to do anything with whatever you're aware of. You don't have to start facilitating it. You don't have to start clearing. You don't have to do anything with it. Just acknowledge, this is what I'm aware of. Cool. And what kinds of beings could you just say hi to that would invite them to be more alive on this planet with us. And all those gifts that you've been unwilling to receive, will you allow yourself to start receiving them? At least a little bit. And everything that doesn't allow that can be destroyed under that. And all those beings who are now ready to go to work, to start creating something different, can we now say, hey, yeah, thank you so much, you can go to work now. Thank you. And what could relaxation and receiving create in your life? Thank you. You can open your eyes whenever you want to. That was a very quickie.
Thank you for this really amazing call. For me, it was like phenomenal.
And I would still like to say, all of you beings in Southern Europe or anywhere in the Europe, now is the time. Let's play.
Oh, yes.
Cool. Thank you so much. We'll post the recordings on Facebook in English and Portuguese. And I think Anna was also translated. Do we have Russian also, Anna? Oh, we could post Russian. Yes. Awesome. Yeah, and maybe see you on the next Zooms or classes.
Yes, thank you. I just posted the event for Lisbon here on
Cool.
the chat, if you want to take a look. And for the people that are in Lisbon,
yeah,
and want to play and come, or in Portugal. And yeah, really, thank you for this, for me, amazing, phenomenal call. Really, really good.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Oh, wait a second. Obrigada?
Yes.
Yeah.
You are getting better.
Cool. Thank you so much, everyone.
Okay.
Thank
bye-bye.
you.
Thank you.